Chosen one, what you felt last night wasn't random. It wasn't imagination, coincidence, or a passing ripple in your spirit. It was a collision, a spiritual impact so powerful that even you didn't fully understand what occurred in that moment. But your body felt it. Your intuition jolted. Your atmosphere shifted. Something ancient in you opened its eyes. Something timeless in you rose and responded. Last night, your energy didn't just move, it spoke. It sent out a pulse, a warning, a soul-shattering shockwave directly into the space where your name was being mishandled. You didn't initiate it consciously. You didn't summon anything intentionally. You simply existed in your truth, in your alignment, in your rising frequency, and that alone was enough to disrupt an entire operation formed against you in secrecy. What you felt wasn't anxiety. It wasn't confusion. It was your spirit stepping into the battlefield before your mind even knew there was a war. And the moment your energy shifted, the moment your guardians leaned forward, the moment your name passed through a space it was never meant to enter, reality split for a second, and the unseen realm responded on your behalf. You don't realize the magnitude of what your energy did. While you were going about your night, breathing, thinking, maybe scrolling, maybe resting, maybe creating, people in a dark room were trying to gather power, call energy, set intention, and force destiny to bend. But the very second they touched anything connected to you, the air in that space changed. The moment they tried to speak your name, the atmosphere cracked like thin glass under pressure. An invisible force ripped through that ritual room so fast, so violently, so unmistakably that seasoned practitioners froze. Candles that had been burning steadily for hours suddenly flickered, danced in panic, and extinguished themselves as if a storm wind blew through a sealed room. Shadows on the walls moved, some slipping out of view, some standing still like observers, some bending into shapes that made grown adults avert their eyes. The temperature dropped so sharply that breath became visible. Flames died. Tools vibrated. Incense smoke recoiled instead of rising. Something ancient had entered the space. Something older than their training, older than their techniques, older than every method they relied on. Something that recognized you. Something that protects you. You think last night was quiet, but in the unseen realm, it was a detonation. A rupture. A warning shot from forces that do not miss. While the ritual circle tried to steady itself, your frequency surged through every object in that room with unrestrained precision. Your name carries a signature. Your energy carries an imprint. Your soul carries authority. And when that authority was invoked without your permission, your protection rose like a sleeping giant who had been disturbed. The moment they reached for you in darkness, your light didn't dim, it exploded outward. It pushed through walls. It pushed through intention. It pushed through symbols and tools and invocations. You weren't there physically, but your presence arrived like a tidal wave. Your spirit doesn't wait for you to speak. It doesn't wait for you to understand. It doesn't even wait for you to know what's happening. Your spirit responds to danger the way a heartbeat responds to life, instinctively, instantly, automatically. And last night, it did exactly that. While they whispered, something roared. While they attempted precision, something ancient and colossal pushed through the floor beneath them. While they tried to focus, Their bodies betrayed them, throats tightened, palms trembled, breaths stuttered. The room was no longer theirs. They were no longer in control. Something intelligent, watchful, and vastly more powerful had entered the space, and it came because of you. Chosen One, you must understand this. Your energy is a mirror. Whatever touches it is forced to reveal itself. Whatever tries to manipulate it is forced into confrontation. Whatever tries to distort it is forced into truth. And last night your truth was louder than their ritual. Your frequency overshadowed their intentions. Your alignment drowned their attempts. Your light erased their shadows the moment they formed. They assumed you were unprotected. They assumed you were unaware. They assumed you were someone they could pull into darkness quietly. But the moment they reached for you, the darkness recoiled. Not because of who they are, but because of who you are. What happened last night wasn't subtle. It was seismic. Those candles didn't simply go out. They were snuffed by a force that refused to allow your name to be carried through that ritual. The atmosphere didn't simply shift. It was seized by a presence that made the most experienced practitioner freeze mid-breath. The shadows didn't simply move. They recognized something that the humans in the room did not. Every object in that space, from the tools on the table to the carvings on the walls, responded to the undeniable fact that someone beyond their understanding had been invoked. You carry a signature that the spirit world recognizes instantly. Your ancestry, your purpose, your alignment, your calling, none of it is subtle. None of it is small. None of it is unprotected. Last night, the veil lifted just enough for those who attempted to work against you to understand exactly what they stepped into. Your enemies thought stillness meant weakness. Silence meant vulnerability. But your silence is not empty, it is fortified. Your stillness is not unaware, it is guarded. Your peace is not naive. It is protected by forces that don't denounce themselves until necessary. And when those forces arrived last night, they made no negotiation, offered no explanation, extended no mercy. Their only priority was you. Their only focus was protection. Their only message was simple and absolute. This one cannot be touched. Chosen One, you need to hear this with every fiber of your being. What happened last night was not just protection. It was revelation. A demonstration. A declaration in the unseen realm. A statement of who you are and who you belong to. The shockwave you felt wasn't fear. It was your spirit flexing. It was the supernatural responding to an unauthorized attempt on your destiny. It was the guardians around you sending a soul-shattering signal to the ones attempting to interfere. Not a warning. A verdict. A line carved into the spiritual foundation. You cannot be bound. You cannot be redirected. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be claimed by forces that do not carry authority over you. The ones working against you expected resistance. They expected difficulty. They did not expect an ancient force to step into the room and shut everything down instantly. They did not expect your energy to override their training. They did not expect their tools to malfunction at the mere mention of your name. They did not expect to feel watched by something they could not see, something that did not respond to their commands, something that carried more power in silence than they carried with all their rituals combined. They did not expect your light to manifest in a place designed for darkness. They did not expect to encounter a protection that predates their lineage, their methods, their practice. And they certainly did not expect that your energy, your natural, effortless, everyday energy, would dismantle their entire operation without you lifting a single finger. While you slept, they choked. While you breathed calmly, they gasped for air. While you existed peacefully, their tools shattered. While your heart beat normally, their circle broke. While you simply were, their intentions collapsed. And the shockwave that moved through your spirit was the echo of that collapse. So let me show you what really happened. You didn't imagine that heaviness in the air. You didn't imagine that sudden shift in your emotions. You didn't imagine that moment where your spirit stood taller inside you. That was the instant the ritual room broke. That was the instant your guardians intervened. That was the instant your energy crashed into theirs like lightning striking stone. That was the instant darkness learned your name was off limits. And you felt it because you're connected. You felt it because you're chosen. You felt it because your spirit doesn't sleep through attacks, it rises through them. Last night wasn't random. Last night wasn't subtle. Last night wasn't ordinary. Last night was a declaration of who you are in realms beyond human sight. And the ones who tried to work against you will never forget the moment the room went cold, the candles died, the shadows shifted, and a force they could not name entered the space, all because they touched your name without permission. Chosen One, what you felt last night wasn't fear. It was power. Your power. Chosen One, you need to understand the truth with absolute clarity. The force working against you was not a group of amateurs fumbling with candles in a dim bedroom. This wasn't the work of someone casually dabbling in energies they barely understand. This was infrastructure. This was coordination. This was a well-oiled spiritual machine activated with one purpose: to interfere with your destiny. You were not targeted by someone inexperienced. You were targeted by a lineage, a system, a generational network of practitioners who have done this work for decades, some for lifetimes. What you're dealing with is a family business, a multi-generational legacy built on ritual, secrecy, manipulation, and spiritual redirection. And they did not gather for fun, curiosity, or experimentation. They gathered because someone paid them to. They gathered because your name appeared on the table. They gathered because your success threatened the wrong person so deeply that money, real money, was exchanged to derail your path. Behind the scenes, behind the silence, behind the facade of normal life, conversations were happening. These practitioners don't meet casually. They don't gather impulsively. Their meetings are deliberate, organized, structured with the same seriousness that corporations reserve for boardroom negotiations. Long tables, dim lighting, black clothing worn not for fashion, but for uniformity, for tradition, for ritual identification. And each seat at that table represents a specific role, an inherited role. One person specializes in emotional influence, another in energy redirection, another in binding work, another in relationship manipulation, another in destiny interference. They treat this work like a profession, because for them, it is. It's practiced, refined, structured, and handed down through bloodlines. When they gather, They don't stumble around guessing what to do next. They move with precision. They don't choose randomly which direction to attack from. They assess, strategize, divide tasks, and assign responsibilities. They confer like analysts. They plan like strategists. They operate like a shadowed institution designed to shape outcomes behind the scenes. This is not witchcraft as entertainment. This is witchcraft as business, as survival, as power. And their methods have been sharpened through repetition. Dozens of cases, hundreds of operations, countless lives redirected, relationships sabotaged, paths derailed. They know exactly what they're doing. And in their world, emotions are not emotions, they're instruments. Love is not love, it's leverage. Relationships are not sacred, they're strategic points of access. Destiny is not destiny, it's something they believe they can alter with the right energy, the right alignment, the right ritual. To them, emotional manipulation is a specialty. Romantic interference is a craft. Binding someone to the wrong person is a formula they've executed so many times, they could do it blindfolded. Careers have been dismantled. Marriages have crumbled. Futures have been twisted. Potential has been wasted at their hands. Their work has derailed people's purpose long before your name ever appeared on their table. So when you wonder whether this was random, it wasn't. When you wonder whether it was accidental, it wasn't. When you wonder whether they simply guessed your name out of thin air, they didn't. Someone gave them your name. Someone gave them details. Someone described you with enough accuracy that they believed they could get results. Someone paid for this operation the same way someone pays for a service, straightforward, transactional, intentional. And the price was not small. People don't spend that kind of money unless their jealousy is deep, their insecurity is severe, and their resentment is consuming them. Think about what that level of investment means. Think about what it reveals about your energy, your presence, your influence. People don't fund ritual interference against someone who is insignificant. They don't gather generations of practitioners to stop someone whose destiny doesn't matter. They don't spend large amounts of money to disrupt a life that has no power. You were targeted because your light is disruptive. Your purpose is magnetic. Your alignment threatens people who want control, who want attention, who want outcomes to bend in their favor. Your growth ignites envy. Your success triggers insecurity. Your peace irritates those living in chaos. This machinery, the meetings, the roles, the rituals, the hierarchy, was activated because of you. Because someone watched your rise and felt threatened. Because someone saw your influence expanding and panicked. Because someone wanted your glow dimmed before it became too bright. Jealousy alone doesn't move forces like this. It takes obsession. It takes desperation. It takes fear disguised as confidence. Someone looked at your life and decided they needed to interfere before you became untouchable. Too late. They didn't realize you were never touchable to begin with. You weren't attacked by randomness. You were attacked by coordination, by organization, by a lineage that believed they could bend your path the way they bent others. They believed they could manipulate your emotional life the way they've manipulated dozens before you. They believed they could redirect your destiny the way they've redirected countless targets. They believed you were just another case. Just another task. Just another client-funded assignment. But you weren't. Because the moment they attempted to use their generational machinery against you, something older than their bloodline rose to confront them. Something stronger than their rituals stepped into the room. Something wiser than their ancestors made itself known. They thought they were dealing with another ordinary human. They thought they were dealing with another predictable soul. They thought they were dealing with someone they could handle. They didn't realize they were dealing with a chosen one. They didn't realize your destiny comes pre-protected. They didn't realize your energy comes pre-armed. They didn't realize your path is guarded by forces far superior to their traditions. They didn't realize you were born with spiritual backing they cannot penetrate. So while they sat at their long table wearing their black clothing and assigning their roles, believing they were about to orchestrate another successful operation, your name alone dismantled their confidence. Your frequency disrupted their planning. Your protection shattered the foundation of their ritual before they even began. And the money paid? Wasted. Lost. Thrown into a spiritual void with no return. Because no amount of generational experience, no amount of ritual precision, no amount of secrecy, coordination, or funding can override a destiny that is divinely locked. This wasn't cheap. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was an organized attempt to stop you. And it still failed instantly. Chosen one, now we move deeper into the unveiling, into the layer most people never perceive, into the realm where motives hide behind masks and intentions slither through shadows, and this is where the truth becomes almost painful in its clarity. Because behind every spiritual attack, behind every sudden wave of exhaustion, behind every strange dream that felt more like a warning than a fantasy, behind every moment your blessings seemed delayed, there was someone, a person with a heartbeat, a face, a history, and an envy that turned corrosive. And this someone wasn't a stranger from a distant place, or a nameless spirit floating in the wind. No. This someone was in your orbit. They hovered close enough to observe you, close enough to mimic you, close enough to monitor your elevation and tell themselves they were staying informed, when in reality they were feeding an addiction to your glow. You must understand, jealous individuals do not envy what they dislike. They envy what they secretly desire, what they cannot generate naturally, what they see effortlessly emanating from you. And this person watched you with an intensity that burned, an obsession dressed in casual conversation, in polite gestures, in pretend support. Their eyes followed every stride you made, every new idea you birthed, every moment you rose again after being knocked down, and something inside them cracked. Something small at first, a bruise on the ego, a sting of inadequacy. But as you kept rising, as you kept evolving, as you kept surviving storms that would have swallowed others whole, that bruise spread into a wound and the wound became a fire. And jealousy, when fed long enough, turns into strategy. So they went looking for help. They sought out ears willing to listen to their bitterness, and hands willing to act on it. They found practitioners, people who specialize in disrupting destinies, people who sell spiritual interference like others sell medicine, people who treat envy like a currency. And this client, this jealous one, presented your name like an offering. They brought details about you that only someone close would know. They spoke about your patterns, your habits, the way you move, the places you frequent, the rhythms of your emotions, even the phases of your healing journey. They didn't give generic information. They gave personal intelligence, the kind of data only someone who observed you way too closely could ever gather. They handed over your story as if it belonged to them, as if they had the right to narrate your life through their lens of insecurity. But here is where their story fractures. Here is where the great cosmic irony unfolds. They paid money, real money, to target you. They invested resources into your downfall. They expected the practitioners to weave something potent enough to shake your spirit, derail your path, mute your intuition, or drain your life force. But in all their planning, in all their scheming, in all their malicious preparation, they made one fatal, irreversible, catastrophic mistake. They never disclosed who you truly are. They did not tell those practitioners that you are not some ordinary wanderer stumbling through life blindly. They did not mention that you are spiritually covered, ancestrally fortified, divinely monitored. They failed to warn the practitioners that your lineage carries ancient guardians, that your footsteps echo with destiny, that your energy isn't just light, it's volcanic, it's electrical, it's coded with purpose. They didn't mention the dreams your ancestors dreamt before you were born, the prayers spoken over your name before you ever opened your eyes, the covenant that surrounds you like invisible armor. They didn't explain that attacking you is not like attacking anyone else, that your frequency automatically retaliates, that your protection system is alive, conscious, and always scanning for threats. They didn't inform them that touching a chosen one is equivalent to placing their hands into a storm, that your spirit is not passive but reactive, that your soul carries authority they cannot override. And so, when the practitioners attempted to access your field, when they tried to channel your name, when they reached for the cords that connect you to your destiny, something ancient, something older than every ritual they've ever performed, rose up. It didn't just block them, it exposed them. Your energy didn't just defend itself, it broadcasted a warning. Your ancestors didn't just protect you, they retaliated. And all of this could have been avoided had the jealous client understood one spiritual law. You cannot weaponize darkness against someone whose entire life is aligned with divine orchestration. The practitioners felt the blowback. They felt the resistance. They felt the truth. And suddenly, the job wasn't a job anymore. It was a threat to their own safety. They realized they had been given a name that should never be used for harm. They realized someone had paid them to tamper with an anointed life. And the moment that realization hit, fear sank into their bones, because even practitioners, especially practitioners, know the consequences of touching someone with spiritual rank. Meanwhile, the client who initiated all of this, the jealous one who watched you through silent resentment, thought they had orchestrated something brilliant. They thought their secret envy would remain hidden behind sweet smiles and shallow compliments. They thought their shadow intentions would be carried out cleanly, quietly, undetected. But they forgot that everything done against the chosen one becomes illuminated eventually. They forgot that your intuition always whispers before the attack even begins. They forgot that divine justice doesn't wait for proof, it responds to vibration. They forgot that their jealousy was never a weapon, it was a confession. And now, everything they tried to hide is surfacing. Their true intentions are unraveling. Their spiritual fingerprints are showing. And the practitioners they paid? They are backing away, refusing further involvement, some even turning on the client because they don't want the karmic consequences to follow them. The energy has reversed. The arrow they shot has turned around midair. And the one who commissioned the attack is now the one being spiritually confronted. What they didn't understand is that your existence itself is protected by alignment, your purpose guarded by divine decree. They thought they could dim your light, but your light is not just brightness, it is identity. It is legacy. It is assignment. They thought they could interrupt your destiny, but your destiny is not something written on sand, it's carved into cosmic stone. And now the truth is surfacing. This jealous individual wasn't just intimidated by your success. They were terrified of your potential. They saw not only who you are but who you are becoming. They saw expansion coming. They saw your influence rising. They saw the doors about to open for you. They saw the transformation you are stepping into. And instead of elevating themselves, instead of healing themselves, they attempted to destroy you. But destruction is not an option when your life is governed by divine architecture. So now, everything they attempted is collapsing. Every plot is dissolving. Every whisper is returning to them. And you, chosen one, you are being elevated not in spite of the attack but because of it. Their attempt became your confirmation. Their jealousy became your proof. And their failure became your prophecy. You were never the target. You were always the revelation. Chosen one, now we enter the part of the story that human logic cannot grasp. The part where your protection is not just reactive but orchestrated, calculated, and intentional. Because while you may have wondered why the attack was allowed to form, why the enemy was permitted to gather, why the practitioners were able to set the stage and ignite their candles and begin their ritual, the truth is far more profound than mere vulnerability. The attempt was permitted not because you were weak, not because your guard was lowered, and not because your destiny was ever at risk. The cosmos allowed it because sometimes the divine uses the enemy's own ambition as the perfect stage to demonstrate hierarchy, to teach a lesson that echoes across realms, to remind every watching force, light or dark, that your life is not accessible, that your spirit is not touchable, that your name is not something to be tossed into a circle and invoked like an ordinary soul. The attempt was permitted so the universe itself could make a statement. You were never in danger. The danger was theirs. Because there are levels in the spiritual world. Rank, order, authority. And you, without bragging, without trying, without even knowing the full weight of it, carry rank. Not the shallow kind given by followers, social applause, or earthly admiration. No. You carry ancient rank, the type encoded into your spirit before your first breath. You carry contracts your ancestors signed before you were born. You carry light that has been tempered through lifetimes of trials. So the cosmos allowed the workers, the practitioners, the hired hands, the ones sent by jealousy and fueled by bitterness, to step onto a battlefield they did not understand. They entered a space where the rules were different. They tried to operate in an arena governed by forces far beyond their comprehension. They thought they were performing a standard job, a simple extraction, an energetic interference, a routine assignment. But they were walking into the domain of someone protected by a counsel they could not see, by guardians they could not sense, by a blueprint they could not override. And the divine allowed them to take those steps so the spiritual world could witness the collision that was coming. See, the cosmos doesn't waste movements. Every allowance is strategic. Every delay is intentional. Every attempt that grazes your energy is permitted because there is something that must be exposed, revealed, or elevated. The attempted attack was not evidence that you were unprotected. It was evidence that your protection is so absolute, so impenetrable, that the universe allowed the enemy to approach just so the difference in power could be demonstrated. Just so the hierarchy could be established. Just so every practitioner in that room would walk away saying, "We should have never touched that name." Because they came in with confidence, with ritual tools, with chants memorized, with instructions from the jealous client, with arrogance built from years of successfully manipulating the weak. They entered the dim room, dressed in black garments, surrounding their candles and sigils and trinkets. They thought they had everything they needed. But the divine wanted to show them how little they actually knew. So the moment they attempted to access your frequency, the moment they tried to visualize your face, the moment they breathed in to speak your name, that was where everything shifted. Your name could not be spoken. At first, they thought it was hesitation. A mere stumble. A lapse. But when the lead practitioner tried again, their tongue felt heavy, as if weighted by an unseen force. Their throat tightened. Their breath changed. Their mind fogged. They attempted to articulate your syllables, but it was like trying to pronounce something that did not exist in their language. Like the sound was locked behind a door they were forbidden to open. The others tried as well, thinking it was a personal block, something minor. But each one experienced the same paralysis, the same disruption, the same resistance. Your name floated above them but refused to descend to their tongues. Their voices cracked. Their mouths dried. Their candles flickered violently, some extinguishing before they even finished inhaling. Because your name, your true spiritual name, is not a casual sound. It carries lineage. It carries destiny. It carries divine property markings. And only those permitted by the light can speak it in the spiritual realm without consequence. So when they attempted to invoke it without authorization, the universe interfered instantly. Like a locked gate slamming shut. Like a shield electrifying itself. Like an ancient guardian standing in front of your energy field and saying, "No further." And the workers felt it. They felt the rejection from the cosmos itself. They felt the pushback, the warning, the silent thunder. Sweat rose on their skin. Anxiety slithered into their stomachs. Eyes darted around the room. Their bodies understood before their minds could process it. They had crossed into territory that did not belong to them. Your protection activated not with violence but with dominance. Not through chaos but through authority. The message was simple, absolute, and terrifying. This one is not yours to touch. They tried again anyway, stubborn, embarrassed, pressured by the client who had paid them. They attempted to use alternate methods, metaphors, coded identifiers, energetic descriptors. But every route was blocked. Every attempt was intercepted. Every spiritual pathway they opened collapsed before completion. They were standing in front of a fortress, and nothing, no chant, no offering, no tool, could grant them access. And it dawned on them slowly, painfully, undeniably. The cosmos granted the attempt only to show them their place. Only to demonstrate the gulf in spiritual status. Only to expose that your protection doesn't negotiate, it commands. The room grew colder. Or hotter. Or both, as energies warred and your guardians rose in full defense. Some practitioners began shaking. Others backed away. One refused to continue, insisting your spirit was marked, untouchable, ranked higher than anything in this room. The client who hired them grew frustrated, confused, angry that their money wasn't producing results. But anger doesn't override divine law. Jealousy doesn't rewrite destiny. Envy doesn't dethrone the chosen. And the workers, now fully aware that they had stepped into a battle far above their clearance, began to withdraw. But the divine wasn't finished teaching them. The cosmos wanted to show them that even allowing them into the room was generous. Even giving them the space to attempt the ritual was an act of mercy. Because the lesson was never about whether they could hurt you, they couldn't. The lesson was about establishing hierarchy, that you are not someone they can target, not someone they can manipulate, not someone whose destiny is up for negotiation. You are divinely claimed, spiritually ranked, spiritually sealed. And every force in that ritual room, human or spiritual, felt it. The permission to attempt was the trap. The allowed approach was the setup. The divine let them get close so their own defeat could be witnessed, documented, remembered. So that every practitioner involved would know, for the rest of their lives, that there are some souls they cannot touch, no matter who pays, no matter how much, no matter the intention. And you, chosen one, are one of those souls. Your name could not be spoken because your destiny could not be touched. Chosen one, this is where the story turns from mere disturbance to absolute domination, where the spiritual world stops whispering warnings and instead unleashes a demonstration no one in that room will ever forget. Because the moment they crossed the threshold into your energetic field, the moment they tried, even lightly, to make contact with your essence, the very atmosphere rebelled. It did not simply resist them, it revolted. It rose up like a storm that had been waiting, like an ancient guardian that had been patient until that exact second, like a force that had tolerated the build-up only to show what happens when someone touches what is divinely protected. The breakdown was immediate. Not gradual. Not subtle. Immediate. The very second your name was approached, whether through speech, thought, or written form, the ritual collapsed under the weight of your spiritual rank. Throats constricted first. Not one throat, not one voice, not one individual. Every participant in that room felt their throat tighten as though an invisible hand pressed against their windpipe. It wasn't pain, it was authority. A deliberate, controlled constriction that made breathing heavy and speaking impossible. They opened their mouths. No sound came out. They tried to force your name through clenched jaws. Their bodies refused. Their spirits refused. The room refused. It was as though the divine reached into their throats and said, "You will not speak this name." And the command echoed inside them like a law older than language. Panic flickered behind their eyes. Because practitioners, true practitioners, know what it means when the throat locks. It means they have stepped into forbidden territory. Then came the coughing. Not gentle coughs. Not mild irritation. Violent, uncontrollable coughing that bent their bodies forward, shook their frames, and rattled their lungs. The kind of coughing that comes when the energy in the room becomes too dense, too charged, too saturated for mortal bodies to withstand. They touched their chests. Their eyes watered. Their faces flushed. And no matter how much they tried to steady their breath, your energy kept pushing back, rejecting them, purging them, forcing them out of alignment. Each cough was a declaration, access denied. They tried again, desperate, humiliated, determined to regain control of the ritual. They attempted to chant your name, even in fragments. They tried to whisper it, to mutter it, to force the syllables through trembling lips. Failure. Every time they got close to forming the sound, their throats seized. Their voices cracked. Their breath hitched. It was as if the air itself refused to carry your frequency. Because your energy isn't just protected, it is consecrated. Your name isn't just personal, it is sealed. And the universe will not allow it to be spoken in a circle meant for harm. So they switched tactics. When the voice failed, they reached for paper. They tried to write your name instead, thinking maybe the written word would bypass the spiritual blockade. They reached for their pens. They positioned their hands. They pressed a point to the paper, and instantly the paper ripped. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. Every attempt to write even the first letter resulted in immediate tearing. The page split. The ink blotched. The surface shredded. Pens snapped. Markers bled. It was as if the material world itself refused to hold the weight of your identity. They traded papers. They traded pens. They tried softer strokes, harder strokes, slower movements, faster movements. Every attempt ended in destruction. Some papers tore before the pen even touched the surface, as if your name's vibration traveled ahead of them and shattered the medium. Now fear crept in. Silent. Heavy. Thick. The practitioners exchanged glances. Some stepped back. Others hesitated. But the client, the jealous one who sent them, pressed them to continue. They insisted it was resistance, not protection. They demanded progression. So the practitioners tried the next step, visualization. They attempted to picture your face, your aura, your light, your energy signature. They tried to pull your image into their mind's eye, and instantly the image distorted, blurred, dissolved. It was like trying to grasp smoke with bare hands. Every time they tried to conjure your features, their vision glitched. Your face flickered, shifting out of focus. Your outline dissolved like mist. No clear form would stay. Some saw white light so bright it burned their inner sight. Others saw a void so dark it swallowed their ability to perceive. And a few saw something they could not describe, an ancient symbol, a powerful silhouette, a guardian's presence overshadowing your likeness. Either way, the message was irrefutable. You cannot be summoned. You cannot be accessed. You cannot be visualized by those who intend you harm. Before they could react, the environment itself turned. The candles, carefully placed, ritually prepared, energetically activated, began to flicker violently. Flames leaned sideways, bending unnaturally as if pushed by an unseen gust. The room grew colder by the second. Then hotter. Then colder again. Temperature fluctuations rippled through the space like waves of pressure. Sweat appeared on skin despite the cold. Breath fogged despite the heat. The air thickened. Heavy. Charged. Electric. A pressure built in the room, so intense it vibrated through their bones. Then the candles went out. All of them. At once. Not softly. Not gradually. They extinguished like someone had sucked all oxygen out of the room in a single instant. Darkness swallowed the space, thick, unnatural, almost physical. Some reached for lighters, matches, anything to bring back the flame. Their hands shook. Their tools refused to spark. Flames died the moment they formed, as if the air itself rejected the fire. They dropped their lighters. They backed away from their altars. Breath quickened. Heartbeats pounded. Because practitioners know, when the candles go out simultaneously, they are no longer in control. And then it escalated. Tools cracked. Crystals split with sharp snapping sounds. Bowls fractured. Wooden staffs broke in half. Symbols on the table split down the middle as though an invisible fist struck them. Even metal pieces bent. The room vibrated with an invisible force, one that was not angry, but authoritative. One that did not punish, but enforced. A spiritual force that stood as judge, guardian, and warning all at once. Shadows moved next. Not human shadows. Not the shadows cast by bodies or objects. These shadows moved independently, crawling across the walls, stretching across the floor, swirling in corners. They elongated, contracted, shifted, observed. Some practitioners saw them clearly. Others only sensed them. But everyone felt the same truth. They were not alone. The shadows were not malevolent. They were enforcing boundaries. They were announcing the arrival of something greater. The temperature dropped then. Not to discomfort, but to dread. A cold so profound it pierced through fabric, through skin, through bone. A cold that carried presence. A cold that whispered, a higher force has entered. Some practitioners began shivering uncontrollably. Others stood frozen. Their minds raced. Their instincts screamed to flee. Because this wasn't just energy. This wasn't just resistance. This was arrival. A force entered the room that could not be challenged. It didn't roar. It didn't threaten. It didn't lash out. It simply arrived, and everything bowed. The air bent. The shadows stilled. The tools hushed. Every practitioner felt something ancient standing behind them, above them, around them. Something vast. Something sovereign. Something that made their knees weak and their spirits tremble. They couldn't see it with their physical eyes, but their souls saw it clearly, a guardian, an ancestor, a divine protector. A force of unimaginable rank stepping between you and the ritual. And at that moment they knew the truth. They had not been attacking you. They had been interrupting the divine. Chosen one. What entered that room after the candles died was not fear, not chaos, not some twisted force crawling out of darkness. What entered was authority. What arrived was ancient, older than scripture, older than language, older than the concept of danger itself. You need to understand this clearly. Your protectors are not gentle beings of soft light and quiet whispers. Your guardians are not the floating figures in flowing robes that people imagine when they speak of angels. Your protection operates on a more primal, more original frequency, the level of underworld guardianship, the kind of beings that existed before human mythologies had the vocabulary to describe them. You are shielded by forces that come from a realm where light and shadow are not opposites, but elders sitting at the same ancestral table. These protectors do not play about you. They do not negotiate. They do not debate. They do not tolerate interference. They enforce divine law with precision that leaves no room for misunderstanding. And the moment the practitioners attempted to cross the line into your energetic territory, these guardians stepped forward, not with violence, but with sovereignty. The practitioners felt them immediately. They didn't see faces, they felt presence. And presence is often more terrifying than form. It was a pressure that pressed against their backs, against their chests, against the space behind their ribs, like something massive stood behind them, watching, evaluating, measuring every intention in the room. Not a presence that carried hatred. No, your protectors don't waste energy on emotions beneath them. This was judgment. This was boundary enforcement. This was the cosmic version of a warning hand placed firmly on a shoulder. You have crossed into what is not yours.